I've seen now many people openly criticize Blizzard for their portrayal of Sylvanas in Legion and what's been seen in Battle for Azeroth. They usually say, the fans usually say, that she is suffering from bad writing because Blizzard is, and I quote, bad at writing. Now, it doesn't take much effort to look into something like this and realize that it isn't Blizzard that suffers from bad writing, but it's the fan base that suffers from a lack of attention span and connecting the dots. If you looked at Sylvanas' current state and say it's bad or awful because of the writing, you suffer from something called cognitive bias, something that is pretty common nowadays, especially with the introduction of the internet. I recommend you go look it up for those who aren't aware of what it is, but for those who do, we shall begin. So, does Sylvanas suffer from bad writing? No. I think far too many people confuse bad writing with a bad character. Character in this sense being that she is purposefully written with low morality or flaws within her personality. She is purposefully characterized as bad, so you, the player, feel a sort of disdain or distrust of her actions and whenever she shows up. But it isn't like she was just bad to be bad to serve the story. She's bad with logical reasoning. In order to define this reasoning, one must go all the way back to when she was still alive, fighting against the Scourge when it marched on Quel'Thalas. She fought with heart and soul. She cared for her people. Then she died. She was slain by Arthas and risen to serve him as a banshee for all the problems she caused him while trying to get to the Sunwell. This upset her, understandably so much so that she took on a new facade, a facade of revenge. Her soul soured and turned to nothing but vengeance and hatred. Sylvanas wanted to kill Arthas for what he did to her and make him suffer like she had. So, to counter him, she got a whole bunch of undead together and staged a revolution in Lordaeron when Arthas returned to Northrend, booting the Scourge out of the kingdom and claiming it as her own. These undead freed were called the Forsaken, named so by her, and they began working for Sylvanas as she was a goddess that promised them purpose, and that this purpose was revenge against the Lich King. To her, these Forsaken weren't just subjects for her to control, they were more like arrows in her quiver, a means to an end. Sylvanas was so set on killing Arthas that she created a plague lethal to both living and undead. Because she did not care of the casualties, if ever used, she only cared whether or not it killed her former master. I don't even think she cared if some of her Forsaken were killed by it. So fast forward to his defeat atop Icecrown Citadel, Arthas' defeat. Sylvanas, wanting to know if the deed was truly done, climbed the spire to see if Arthas was indeed dead, and, well, she did find him dead, but she also found Bolvar, who had taken up the mantle of Lich King. Seeing this, she believed her revenge was fulfilled. She had a lot of heated resentment for Arthas, and now Arthas was dead, so she proceeded to kill herself. She jumped off the frozen throne and landed on one of the Spire Serenite spikes, even after being shown what would have happened if she died by the Valkyr. What would have happened is that her people would have been destroyed, the Alliance would have claimed Lordaeron, and the Horde would have been destroyed along with it. But she didn't care. She made her choice. She wanted to die. But then she saw what awaited her in the afterlife. Nothing. There was nothing but a cold, dark place she had to share with Arthas and possibly many other souls. She didn't want to be there. She hated it, in fact, so much so that she decided to go with what the Valkyr promised. They promised her that she will be revived as long as the Valkyr are able to serve her in a quote-unquote much greater purpose. She agreed, and they returned to Lordaeron, where she personally led the assault against Gilneas. It was in this moment that she realized that her people were not arrows, but they weren't people either. They were a shield, a bulwark, a resource, quote-unquote a resource, that's her words, not to be squandered by anyone else, but for her own survival. If you look at what I just stated and compare it to what's happening in present day, pre-Battle for Azeroth and post-Legion, what's the difference? Well, the only big difference is that she's Warchief now. She is the leader of a faction. She has no one to answer to, because she is the one who answers. She is the one that knocks. Sylvanas, after having fulfilled her life goal, now only wants one thing in life, or unlife, I guess, because she's dead. To survive. This is apparent with how she begins raising more Forsaken to replace the ones that have died before them, to strengthen her bulwark against her enemies. She is pushing to conquer more territory, using more of her Forsaken. She wants to be dominant in Lordaeron, not to have the Alliance just walk in. She wants dominance. Why? Because dominance means survival. We also see the same thing in Stormheim, and how Sylvanas wishes to use a lantern to enslave Odin's Valkyr so that she may live longer if killed. We've seen this before when she was killed right outside the giant Greymane wall, and some of her Valkyr sacrificed himself. I think it was a couple. It might have been one. They sacrificed himself to revive her, which is exactly what happened when she was revived outside of Icecrown Citadel. So now, going into battle for Azeroth, Azerite has the ability to turn the tides of war, put the Horde on top. It is a very powerful resource, almost like plutonium. If the Horde is on top, Sylvanas is the top dog, and if she's top dog, no one can touch her, which means she never has to worry about going back to the afterlife. It's the whole reason the war started, and she will use not only her Forsaken as the bulwark, but the entire Horde, and this is very prevalent and very much stated in the pre-patch, with how much focus she's putting on using the Horde to her own gain. Sylvanas does not suffer from poor writing. Is she a bad character, written to be an anti-hero for the Horde and a villain for the Alliance? Yes. She isn't Garrosh. Her motives go all the way back to Warcraft 3. She isn't randomly changing motives to just serve a greater plot. She's gradually changed over time, something that a lot of people call character development. Thanks for watching.